Healthy aging used to be sold with a very shiny promise. Turn back the clock, defeat aging, find the breakthrough that keeps you young. But the conversation is changing. At conferences, in biotech labs, in city programs, and inside community centers, the more serious question is no longer, how do we live forever? It is, how do we live longer while still being able to move, think, connect, choose, contribute, and remain independent? That is the heart of the health span movement. Not just lifespan, not just more years, better years. And increasingly, healthy aging is being treated not as a private lifestyle project for people with time and money, but as a public health strategy. That shift matters for investors, health systems, employers, families, and anyone trying to understand where healthcare, longevity science, and aging policy are heading next. Because the world is aging fast, and longer lives do not automatically mean better lives. The emerging consensus is that the real target is functional ability, the capacity to do the things that matter in later life. That can mean walking without fear of falling, managing chronic conditions without losing independence, staying socially connected, having transportation, getting dental care, sleeping well, keeping muscle, accessing trusted care, feeling useful, and making choices about one's own life. That framing lines up with the World Health Organization's approach to healthy aging, which emphasizes the process of developing and maintaining the functional ability that enables well-being in older age. In plain English, healthy aging is not just what is happening inside the body. It is the interaction between the body, the mind, the home, the neighborhood, the healthcare system, and the relationships around a person. That is a much bigger idea than anti-aging. It is also a more investable idea. The healthy aging agenda is broadening on several fronts at once. Policy groups are talking about coordinated systems. Local expos are helping seniors and caregivers navigate services. Scientists are studying muscle, mitochondria, immune aging, stress biology, cartilage repair, and epigenetic reprogramming. Lifestyle experts are still emphasizing the basics: exercise, sleep, food quality, stress reduction, vaccination, chronic disease management, and social connection. And that last point is important. The healthy aging field is full of exciting science, but the strongest evidence today still points back to familiar habits and better systems. Healthy Aging Month, observed each September, is one example of how long this public awareness effort has been building. It began in the early 1990s as a campaign focused on prevention and positive approaches to aging. The message was simple but durable. Do not wait until decline becomes a crisis. Build healthier habits and better supports earlier. That message is being scaled into public planning. Recent gatherings and programs have focused on age-friendly housing, transportation, integrated health and social care, assistive technology, social connection, oral health, and local coordination. That may sound less glamorous than a new longevity drug, but for many older adults, the difference between independence and dependency is not a molecule. It is whether they can get to a doctor, afford nutritious meals, maintain strength, avoid isolation, modify a home, and find help before a small problem becomes a crisis. That is why local services matter. A senior and lifestyle expo, for example, may not sound like a cutting-edge health intervention, but if it connects older adults and caregivers with healthcare guidance, assisted living information, insurance help, veterans resources, transportation options, housing support, finance advice, and recreation programs, it is part of the healthy aging infrastructure. The same is true for senior nutrition programs, community exercise classes, brain health workshops, music events, caregiver support groups, and local fairs focused on future planning. These are not side issues, they are the operating system of HealthSpan. Because healthy aging does not happen only in hospitals. It happens in kitchens, sidewalks, churches, gyms, libraries, buses, parks, clinics, and living rooms. Now on the lifestyle side, the message is becoming clearer and more practical. For movement, the key is not just exercise more. It is combining aerobic activity, strength training, and balance work. For adults 65 and older, public health guidance generally points to regular moderate-intensity aerobic activity, muscle strengthening at least 2 days a week, and balance training to reduce fall risk. The most important word there may be muscle. Muscle is emerging as one of the central organs of aging, not because of appearance, not because everyone needs to become an athlete, but because muscle is tied to mobility, glucose control, metabolic health, fall prevention, resilience during illness, and independence. Strength and cardiorespiratory fitness often peak in early adulthood and gradually decline from there. with losses becoming more noticeable in middle age and later life. Inactivity, poor nutrition, chronic disease, and hospitalization can accelerate that decline. The practical interpretation is straightforward. Strength training is not optional decoration in later life. It is a core health intervention. That does not mean everyone should start lifting heavy weights tomorrow. It means a safe, progressive plan matters. That could include resistance bands, machines, bodyweight movements, supervised programs, water aerobics, physical therapy, or structured classes designed for older adults. Function: standing from a chair, climbing stairs, carrying groceries, recovering from setbacks, and staying steady on one's feet. Nutrition is another foundation. The healthiest aging patterns tend to emphasize vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains, lean proteins, nuts, and healthy fats, while limiting ultra-processed foods, added sugars, and excess sodium. But the newer tone in nutrition guidance is more realistic. Instead of promising one magic longevity food, clinicians and dietitians are emphasizing sustainable upgrades. Add fiber-rich foods, spread protein across the day, cook more meals at home, stay hydrated, use simple meal planning, and make eating social when possible. Beans, leafy greens, yogurt, fish, oats, nuts, olive oil, and lentils are not miracle foods, but they are examples of nutrient-dense, accessible choices that can fit into a broader, healthy pattern. Sleep is also getting more attention. Several analyses have pointed toward a roughly 7 to 8 hour sleep window being associated with healthier aging markers. But that evidence is mostly observational. So the fact is, sleep duration and sleep quality are linked with health outcomes. The interpretation is, consistent, restorative sleep probably supports resilience. What we should not say is that a specific number of hours by itself guarantees slower aging. Healthy aging also includes prevention: vaccines, screenings, medication reviews, dental care, hearing and vision checks, pain management, fall risk assessment, and chronic disease control. Oral health in particular is moving into the healthy aging conversation. That is overdue. Dental problems can affect nutrition, inflammation, speech, confidence, infection risk, and quality of life. For older adults, oral health is not cosmetic. It is functional health. The same is true for hearing and vision. If someone cannot hear well, see well, chew comfortably, walk safely, or sleep consistently, health span suffers. And then there's the social side. Healthy aging is biological, but it is also psychological and cultural. Loneliness, loss of routine, financial stress, caregiving strain, neighborhood safety, and lack of transportation all shape health behavior. It is much easier to tell someone to exercise, eat well, and stay connected than it is to build the conditions that make those things possible. That is why the idea of generous listening is gaining relevance. It means care that starts with the older person's actual goals and lived experience, rather than a generic checklist. One person may prioritize pain relief. Another may want to keep gardening. Another may want to remain in their home. Another may want help with memory, grief, or transportation. Healthy aging cannot be one size fits all. Social connection is not a soft extra. Staying engaged with family, friends, neighbors, volunteering, music, cultural activities, faith communities, learning and recreation can support mental well-being and may be associated with better cognitive and physical outcomes. Much of that evidence is observational, meaning healthier people may be more able to participate in the first place. But the policy implication remains powerful. Communities should create accessible, flexible ways for older adults to belong and contribute. Now let's turn to the research frontier. This is where the healthy aging story becomes exciting, but also where caution is essential. Scientists are making real progress in understanding biological aging. They are studying mitochondrial function, immune aging, chronic stress, muscle repair pathways, cartilage degeneration, and epigenetic regulation. One line of research looks at how chronic psychosocial stress may accelerate immune aging. The scientific question is whether stress leaves measurable molecular signatures in immune cells, and whether those changes can identify people at higher risk or point toward reversible targets. That is promising, but it is not yet a consumer-ready intervention. Another area involves mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside cells. Researchers have reported that changes in certain membrane lipids, including phosphatidylcholine, may contribute to mitochondrial dysfunction in aging model organisms. Restoring those lipids improved mitochondrial function in lab models. The fact is intriguing. The interpretation is that mitochondrial membrane chemistry may become a target for future interventions. The warning is that this does not mean people should start self-prescribing supplements as anti-aging therapy. Epigenetic reprogramming is another highly watched area. Life Biosciences announced on June 9, 2026, that the first participant had been dosed in a Phase 1 trial of ER100 for optic neuropathies, including open-angle glaucoma and non-arteritic anterior ischemic optic neuropathy. The therapy uses controlled expression of three Yamanaka factors, OCT4, SOX2, and KLF4, in an attempt to partially restore epigenetic patterns in retinal ganglion cells. That is a major milestone for the field. But it is also a safety trial. The first question is not, does this reverse aging? The first question is it safe and tolerable in humans? Any early signal on visual function will need cautious interpretation and later confirmation. Other work remains earlier stage. Alzheimer's-related compounds that look promising in mice still have to survive the long, difficult path of human trials. Cartilage regeneration findings in mouse models and human tissue outside the body may eventually point toward new treatments for osteoarthritis, but clinical translation is still ahead. So the key distinction is this: aging biology is advancing, but most targeted interventions remain investigational. That distinction is especially important in the supplement market. Creatine monohydrate has a long track record in sports performance and is being studied for older adults because of possible benefits related to strength, muscle mass, frailty risk, bone health, and cognition. But context matters. Kidney function, medications, diet, dose, and health status should be considered with a clinician. NMN, an NAD+ precursor, has shown encouraging animal data and some early human signals related to NAD+ levels and selected metabolic or vascular markers. But long-term safety, optimal dosing, formulation quality, and definitive clinical benefits remain unsettled. Vitamin K2 has been linked in some research to slower arterial calcification progression, but larger randomized trials are still needed before broad claims can be made. The investor-friendly takeaway is that demand for healthy aging products is real, but evidence quality will increasingly separate durable businesses from hype-driven ones. Consumers, regulators, clinicians, and payers are likely to reward credibility, clear claims, safety data, clinical relevance, quality control, and measurable outcomes. That brings us to the policy and economic stakes. An aging population creates pressure on healthcare budgets, labor markets, housing systems, transportation networks, family caregivers, and long-term care infrastructure. If more people live longer but spend those extra years with disability, dementia, frailty, pain, and isolation, the costs are enormous. But if health span improves, the gains can be broad. Lower care burden, fewer preventable hospitalizations, more independence, longer workforce participation for some, stronger communities, and better quality of life. Countries and regions are experimenting with different models. Japan and Sweden are often discussed for prevention, community-level care, integrated services, social participation, and support for independent living. California has signaled policy interest in longevity and health span. Cities in Southeast Asia, including Cebu, are exploring wellness-oriented models involving fitness, nutrition, telehealth, preventive services, and age-friendly design. The lesson is not that one country has solved aging. No one has. The lesson is that healthy aging requires coordination. Healthcare alone cannot do it. Housing alone cannot do it. Biotech alone cannot do it. Personal responsibility alone cannot do it. The next phase will be about integration. So what should we watch? First, implementation. Conferences and policy dialogues are useful, but the real question is whether recommendations become funded programs with measurable outcomes. Are cities building age-friendly transport? Are care systems integrating medical and social support? Are caregivers getting help? Are pain, oral health, hearing, and mobility being addressed early? Second, human data from first-in-human longevity-related trials. Safety comes first. Efficacy comes later. The field should celebrate progress without overselling it. Third, translation from lab discoveries. Molecules like NOx4, pathways involving mitochondrial stress, cartilage regeneration targets, and epigenetic approaches could matter, but only if they lead to safe, reproducible human benefit. Fourth, scalable community models. Nutrition programs, music events, local expos, senior exercise classes, and caregiver services should be evaluated not just by attendance, but by outcomes. Mobility, chronic disease control, isolation, emergency visits, independence, and quality of life. And fifth, better measurement. A single annual exam can miss the real story. Healthy aging may need broader markers: grip strength, walking speed, balance, medication burden, pain, sleep, cognition, social support, oral health, sensory function, frailty risk, and personal goals. The big picture is that healthy aging is becoming more realistic and more ambitious at the same time. More realistic because serious experts are moving away from miracle pill language, one-size-fits-all regimens, and premature claims from early-stage biotech. More ambitious because the goal is not merely to add years to life. The goal is to redesign habits, environments, care systems, communities, and eventually medical interventions so that more people can maintain function, autonomy, and connection for longer. For individuals, the near-term playbook is practical. Move regularly, build and preserve muscle, eat mostly whole foods, get enough protein and fiber, sleep consistently, stay socially connected, manage stress, keep up with vaccinations and screenings, protect oral health, address hearing and vision, reduce fall risks, and work with qualified professionals when making medical, supplement, medication, or exercise decisions. For investors and policymakers, the opportunity is broader. Products, services, housing, care models, diagnostics, digital tools, nutrition, fitness, biotech, and community infrastructure that help people function better for longer. The future of healthy aging will not be won by one pill, one app, one clinic, or one policy. It will be won by systems that help people keep doing the things that make life feel like life. And that may be the most important shift of all. Healthy aging is no longer just about not getting sick. It is about preserving the ability to live fully. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not medical, legal, financial, or safety advice. Anyone considering changes to medications, supplements, exercise, diet, or treatment plans should consult qualified healthcare professionals, especially when managing chronic conditions or age-related health concerns.